Hi everyone, welcome to my talk on effective transitioning with Svelte. I'm Andrew Smith, otherwise known as SilentWorks in the Svelte Discord and on Twitter. I've been using Svelte since the release of the first public version some years ago, and I'm very enthusiastic about this framework. Svelte is powerful. It allows a user to write code they can reason about easily. It allows us to really sit on the shoulders of giants, or since Svelte has a small footprint, the shoulders of ants. Now today I want to talk about one of the great features of the framework, transitions. So what are transitions? This is the meaning I got from the dictionary for the word transition, but in Svelte's case, Svelte transitions are triggered when an element is entering or leaving the DOM because of a state change, right? So let's look at some of the types of transitions you get for free with Svelte. So these are Svelte built-in transitions. We have fade, blur. So we're going to talk about all of the ones that don't have the asterisk next to them. So let's jump into the fade. So the fade transition will fade an item in and out when it's coming onto the page and when it's leaving the page. So as you could see, when I first loaded this slide in, you saw it fade in. So that's how the fade transition would work. The blur, as the name states, it will give you the element it's attached to a blurry look when it's loading onto the page. And it'll do the same when the element is on its way out, right? So just now it blurred when it came in. The fly is one of my favorite transitions because the element is literally moving on the page on a desired axis. We can have text like the example here flying in from the top of the screen to a desired position and back out to where it came from when the element is removed from the page. Slide is one of those transitions I tend not to use much, as it looks like it's trying to paint an element onto the page, but not doing it in a nice way. At first, I thought this was going to do what fly did, but with something more. I may have just not found the right use case for this as yet. This is the scale. It's one of my other favorites. I like the way how it has that zoom in feel, and when the element comes in, there's a nice zoom in feel attached to it. And you can also change the ease-in to make it have a bouncy feeling if you want. One thing to note is that most of these transitions have the same delay and duration property. Some transitions have more options than others. A transition like fly, right, will have something like a x-axis and a y-axis that you can set. Scale will have something like amount. So yeah, there's different options depending on which transition you're using. So let's talk about maximizing the use of the transition, because we can get more out of the built-in transitions by using some tricks, right? One of these tricks is delay, right? They have a delay parameter on some of the transitions, and you can get a nicer effect of a list loading when using a delay. So as you saw earlier, you could see that the prepare presentation, create slides, and recording presentation came in all at once. There was no delay, everything just loaded in at the same time. Now, if we just toggle the delay example, we can see how this will load in with a delay. So it will have like a staggered feeling. That looks way more nicer, right? So each of these items were just delayed by 200 milliseconds. So each one would load 200 milliseconds after the other has loaded. So let's just click on the toggle delay again. So that's the original list loading up. And then if we hit it again, we'll see the transition with the delay. Let's look at this shopping bag example. When we add an item to the bag, you will notice the numbers increment, right? This doesn't really draw the user's attention to this area. But if we add a simple transition to the number changing, this might catch the user's attention. And as you can see from the example, we're just using a set timeout to trick Svelte into thinking we're changing the state of items changed in order to trigger the transition to happen. But if we even look at the code in the HTML where the transition happens, we're just saying if items change. So if that's true, then this item should be shown, right? So the transition would happen because transition only happens when an item is rendered in the DOM or when an item is removed. So we've just applied a transition fly with a y-axis of 15. So as we add, see how smoothly that looks. There's a nice little bounce to it. We got that all out of the box from Svelte. Didn't need to write any CSS at all. Just look at that number bouncing. I could just sit here and watch this all evening. Now let's look at the modal example. Now this modal example doesn't have any transition at all. I mean, this just looks horrible, right? It wouldn't be something I would be expecting a user to use. And if my CSS foo is not that good, then this is somewhere I would want to make use of Svelte's transition system. Let's look at it. Let's look at this again. It's just horrible. It's really, really horrible. Right. Now, let's have a look at a version that has Svelte transitions applied to it. Whoa. I mean, how nicely the modal pops out of the page. You know, that just looks so nice. Now it feels a bit more acceptable. Let's click the ignore button and see what happens. Oh wow, it just went straight back into the page. Right, let's open that again. And this time let's try clicking on the accept button this time. Ooh. Ha. What? You might be thinking, no way this was done without writing some CSS transitions yourself. Well, I guess let's look at the code behind this. On the left-hand side is our JavaScript, and on the right is our HTML. I left out the CSS that was used for the styling of the modal due to the screen space. But I can assure you, there are no CSS transitions written in there. None. You might notice we're using the same set timeout trick here again. And we're just fooling Svelte's transition system into believing that we're making changes so that it can trigger the transition. And over here, on your right, you'll notice in the HTML, in some areas, we're only transitioning in one direction. Hence the reference to the in and out directives. So here we only want to scale the item when it's getting added into the page. When it's getting taken out of the page, it should just go away right away. For this one, we're saying when the item's getting removed, we want it to slide out, right? So yeah, I mean, absolutely no CSS is required to create any of these transitions. All you have to do is apply the transition to a DOM element and wrap the element in a if tag with a state that is waiting to be changed. Thank you for coming to my talk. You can find me on Twitter on the Silent Works or on Discord on the same screen name. Also check out the Svelte transition tutorials. Some of you might have noticed that this entire talk, the slide, was actually using Svelte transitions. The whole slide system I'm using here is written in Svelte. So I'll add it somewhere on GitHub, and I'll share the link on my Twitter soon.